I've told that story again to say, look, if that man hadn't given me a second chance, if he hadn't walked in my shoes and understood empathy, I might not be here today. And that was something I'll always try to remember when it's my turn to forgive. Now that's what this great thing mercy is. It's about love and forgiveness and mercy and understanding and empathy. But I want to talk about a new aspect of mercy today. I'm going to flip this whole issue over this morning. I want to talk to you about what mercy is not. I think in some ways we have, because we love the concept of divine mercy, sometimes forgotten that it's not always a passive thing. And it's not about peace at any price. And it's not about forgiveness when that forgiveness will hurt the innocent. What do I mean by that? We look back to the gospel recently that we heard, and it's about Jesus in the temple. And Jesus goes in, and it seems so out of character. He is furious that his house of prayer, his Father's house, is being commercialized, turned into a business, and he loses his temper. He is filled with righteous anger, righteous indignation, turning over tables, driving people who probably made their living that way out of the temple. And we look at that and wonder, wait a second, my God is a God of love and mercy. But we sometimes take out the spine of Christ in the name of mercy. And we act as if because of mercy, you can't have conviction. Because of mercy, you can't stand for principle that is unchanging. Because of mercy, I have to forgive and forget and get by everything, even when it is a violation of what is good and holy and kind. A couple of examples come to mind. Excuse me. I know that he's never going to be as warm and fuzzy as Cardinal Dolan, who's the most lovable man in the world. But Cardinal Egan was in many, many ways a great man. And his passing is to be something we mourn, because he really was an amazingly good, solid man. I have to tell you a story. When I was running the family ministry office of my diocese, I came in one time to a testimony he offered at the city council. And the city council had decided that since kids can't be good, what we need to do for all the kids in grammar school, high school, and middle school is give them tons of condoms and give them free access to birth control, because they can't not have sex. So we might as well cooperate with them and at least give them the means to prevent pregnancy, so-called. I mention that because he was the head of education at that point for the Archdiocese of New York. He was an auxiliary bishop. And he got up and he told them what was wrong with their thinking, and how we were called on to tell our kids there is a choice they can make for the good. That you don't have to make our kids some kind of animal who are incapable of saying, I know sex is a beautiful gift meant to be shared in the right time and the right place with the right person. I will choose to be chaste instead. He said, you are selling our kids down the river. Handing out condoms and pills is not the answer. Teaching them the difference between right and wrong is the answer. And one of the city councilmen said, well, we know what our program is called. It's called birth control. What is the name of your program? And Cardinal Egan said, it's called Western civilization. He said, we have a 2,000-year history of telling people that life is about choices. And I am angry, he said, that we have taken away the possibility that our kids can choose rightly. I had never heard him speak with anger. It was great to hear. He had a backbone, he had conviction. A merciful man, to be sure, but a man who knew that mercy should not make us blind to the need to say the truth. Another example comes to mind. 2008 election. Remember all the fuss they made over the single vote that Hillary Clinton made where she supported going into Iraq for the war. And of course, the fact that she did that may have cost her the nomination. Barack Obama kept hounding her. You say, well, can one vote matter that much? Well, let me give you another vote. It was one I spoke about a lot back in 2008. As a state senator in Illinois, there was a bill that Barack Obama had to vote on. And the bill said, believe it or not every abortion ends in an abortion. Sometimes the baby miraculously gets out alive. I mean, thousands every year, even in late-term abortion. The abortionist does a bad job and the baby slips out alive, badly damaged, but alive. And the bill before the state senate was, if that baby gets out of its mother, a doctor is obligated to do everything he can to save it because it's been born. Do you know that that was almost unanimously endorsed, except for one vote? Barack Obama said, the intention was the baby should die, let it die. Now I'm telling you something, I can't say that I can allow all the other nice things he represents to overcome the fact that on a life issue of incredible importance, the baby is already born. To end that baby's life or allow it to die is a form of infanticide. That's not a vote I can ignore. So what I'm saying is I was outraged by that vote, and I said throughout the whole 2008 election, you can't not look at what people stand for, that what they do matters. If we found out a candidate running for president supported segregation, was anti-Semitic, supported child abuse, who of us could say, well, it's just one issue, I'll overlook it? In the same way, the righteous anger we should all feel for that vote is something that is not the opposite of divine mercy, because the mercy must be meted out for that child who has a right to be born. We are called on to be merciful, but we are called on to be just. We are called on to be true. We are called on to be faithful. Another example, our church has a sad history in this whole issue of child abuse. And there are two groups of people to be angry at, certainly the abusers. Those priests who violated their vows, that 4% of the priests who chose wrongly and badly. There's no excusing that in any circumstance whatsoever. But then the cover-up, the leaders of the church who allowed that to go on in too many places. There's a group called Voice of the Faithful. And I know some people in the church don't like them, because some of their perspectives are fairly liberal. But one thing they say is this must never happen again. And when you talk to people in Voice of the Faithful, a lay group, they sound sometimes pretty angry. And I say, bless the anger. The anger is a sign of mercy for the children, for the victims who have been abused. It's a call for the church to be just. It's a call for the church to be true. We are the followers of a Christ who said, woe to those who hurt the little ones. Better for them that a millstone be tied around their neck and they be thrown into the river than to hurt one of the little ones. What could be more hurtful, more harmful than to abuse the innocent child? And some did it, not many, but some, and some covered up. And Voice of the Faithful, with a certain degree of anger, said, never again. And they are annoying. They pick at bishops. They constantly write to bishops, and they say, be true to the need to protect the children. And God bless them for doing that. Let me mention maybe one more example, and that is about, again, sexual responsibility. In our devotion to mercy, sometimes we think, oh, live and let live for everybody. Throw this statistic into the mix. This is now a recent, 2014. 71% of African American children this year, 71% will be born to an unmarried single mom. 53% of Latino, Hispanic children will be born to a mom raising the children on their own, 53%. 36% of the white babies born this year will be born to a single parent, a mom doing it alone. Now, we want to be loving and, live and let live, but aren't we obligated somewhere to say, guys, if you're not willing to put up, if you're not willing to be there, if you're not willing to support the child, if you're not willing to marry the mother of your child, then keep it zippered. I'm afraid in the name of goodness, mercy, compassion, tolerance, inclusivity, we are being fools because we don't recognize that mercy must always be rooted in justice, in doing the right thing. And I know that's not an easy message. Look, divine mercy sounds so nice, love everybody. But you love people who want to be forgiven. You love people who understand that they've done wrong. It's not a blank check. Some of you know, some of you are my parishioners, I've spoken of this. For the longest time, I had this one man come to me in confession who would tell me almost weekly that he was cheating on his wife. And I would, listen to him, give him a penance, and then always the penance, by the way, included, you got to break off that relationship with the woman who's not your wife. You have to start again with your own wife and build that relationship. You cannot be and he'd say his act of contrition. 5 times he came back, and he always went back to the woman that was not his wife. And so on the 6th time when he came, I said, look, today, I'm not giving you absolution. He said, what do you mean? I've confessed my sin, and I want absolution. I said, look, God's mercy is an incredible gift, but you better not take advantage of that gift much too often, because you are expected to have firm purpose of amendment, which is to say, I'm here to say I'm a sinner, but I'm truly going to try. You can't, in 5 weeks' time, every week go back and sleep with that other woman and say you're trying to change. By the way, don't you love that? I'm sleeping with her. They're not sleeping. Sleep wouldn't get them into the trouble he's in, you know? And he said to me, I thought you had an obligation to forgive. And I said, no. I have an obligation to be forgiving for the person who wants to receive forgiveness and to try to change your life. And you won't always succeed. And divine mercy is that he makes up for those times when we genuinely try, but we fail. But we need, in our deeply troubled world, to say, I will be merciful, but I will be just. A couple of examples again called to mind. Some of you may remember him. Bishop Austin Vaughn was an auxiliary bishop in this diocese. Great man. He once said to me about why he was getting arrested at abortion clinics. He said, Jimmy, there never has been and never will be a child created who's a mistake in the mind of God. There never has been. And never will be a child created who's a mistake in the mind of God. So if that's true, and I believe he's right, then how do we remain passive in the face of the fact that we're still at 1.2 million abortions in the richest, most powerful country in the world? And at the same time that there are 2 million couples every year who want to adopt. You've got 1.2 million abortions, and you've got 2 million couples longing to love the child. How do you remain passive and justify or act as if the issue doesn't matter? And I know whenever you mention the A word in any gathering, including gathering Catholics, it's like, okay, old issue, that's settled. No, it's not. As long as children are dying, as long as the selfish choice is being made to terminate life, when there are couples hungering to adopt those children, we cannot be silent. I'll give you another example. Did you know that there are 20 states right now that are contemplating passing laws to allow for assisted suicide, and that one of them is New York State? Now, you and I know, we know in our heart and soul that the answer to sickness, to old age, to serious illness is not to kill the patient. And yet more and more states are, because of our passivity, allowing it to happen. And so I'm happy that the Catholic Conference in New York State is saying we have an obligation as Catholic Christians to say to Governor Cuomo, to say to the state Senate and the state Assembly, we will not be silent in the face of the injustice of taking human life at the beginning of life or at the natural end of life. But passivity can never help the oppressed, always the oppressor. And we are called on to be people who speak our truth in season and out of season, no matter what it costs. We are not called on to be passive. Mercy is not about passivity. It's about active love, and active love means speaking up and standing up and having the courage of conviction and having backbone. I go around the world to other examples, and I love Pope Francis so much, and I love that he's called for this year of mercy. How wonderful. But isn't it interesting that the Holy Father who calls for a year of mercy is also the person who is courageous enough to say no? In the case of this thing called ISIS, in the case of the slaughter of innocents, especially our own people around the world, we cannot be silent. And no, there's nothing wrong with a military response to invincible evil. One of the guests I'm going to have on my show is Ronald Lauder. He's the president of the World Jewish Congress. And the reason I want to have him on is because he said in the New York Times to his brothers and sisters in the Jewish community, we cannot be silent in the face of the slaughter of the Christians in the Middle East, because make no mistake about it, make no mistake about it, he said, they will come first for the Christians, and they will certainly come for us. And our brothers and sisters in the Christian faith must be defended. Now, I thought to myself, how is it that one of the strongest statements I've heard comes from the head of the World Jewish Congress? Where is the Catholic voice? Why is it that every congressman and every senator hasn't heard from you and me? We have brothers and sisters who will die today. They will be horribly slaughtered by crazy people who use the mask of the Islamic faith as their excuse to kill people who do not believe as they do. And we are those people that we look back in history We say, how could this happen during World War II? How could the world remain silent in the face of the Holocaust? I remember reading Iris Chang's book called The Rape of Nanking and wondered, as the Japanese did horrific things to the Chinese, where was the indignation of the world? And yet, here we are at 2015. People are slaughtered, they are beheaded, they are burned alive. Whole Christian villages face genocide. And I wonder, where is the outrage? Mercy is good, but what about mercy for those horrid victims? Those people who are put through terrible, terrible pain. Where is our voice? Mercy must be translated into a care for the victims around the world who have no one to speak for them except for you and me. And it's a holy calling, that kind of mercy. Congressman Henry Hyde once said, one of the great things about pro-life is you are a voice for the voiceless, kids who cannot speak for themselves. And while you may never meet the people whose lives you save, know that in heaven they will be there to greet you and to say thank you. When I needed someone to not be silent, you were not silent. In the same way, I believe those victims of Islamic terrorism around the world, those victims will one day thank you and me for having the courage to stand tall and recognize that mercy is not passivity, that mercy is always going to be an example of speaking our truth with love, but not being in any way short on conviction. Just if I can throw out another example of what I'm talking about too, and this is important. You know, I think of all the merciful stories that we read about in the life of Christ. For me, one that I can't read honestly without crying because it's so beautiful, is the story of the prodigal son. And by the way, I think we give a lot of credit to God the Father for the mercy that Jesus demonstrated in that story. But I like to think that Jesus learned in real time, that he learned not just from his Father, who gave him all things, but that he also learned from the man he lived with, St. Joseph. And that somewhere along the way, this simple carpenter taught his son, it's always important to forgive, and it's always important to try to be someone who calls people to the truth. My point is that that son in the prodigal son story, he didn't come back and try to kill his father. He didn't come back and slaughter and terrorize. He came back with truly the firm purpose of amendment. He wanted the mercy of his father. He wanted the forgiveness. But he said to himself in preparation, I will go to my father, and I will say, Father, I am not worthy of your forgiveness. I am not worthy to be called your son. Treat me as you would one of your hired servants. The son in the prodigal son story, that great story of God's mercy, is willing to cooperate with what is good, recognizes the evil of his past, and wants to change. We are called on to be merciful people, no doubt about it. We are called on to love and to forgive, but we are also called on to be brave, and we are called on to be true, and we are called on to be courageous. We are not Christians of a Gumby spine. We are Christians who have spines of steel. I will love you, but I will expect you to be different. I will love you, I will expect you to change your ways. I will love you, but if you do wrong to the innocent, and you hurt my Christian brothers and sisters, and you go after the preborn child, and you try to kill people at the end of life through this assisted suicide, I will fight you with everything in me. I will be loving, but I'm going to have backbone. I will be loving, but I will be true. I will be loving, but I'll be courageous. And I'm here to say to you, mercy means, yes, to love, but it means to know who you are, to stand with values that last, to speak the truth in season and out of season, to say it always with conviction. Be merciful, be loving, be true, be courageous, and in doing that, we reflect the true divine mercy, who is Jesus himself. Thank you so much for listening.